must quit meeting like this. Again, I'm on the verge of tears. This time it's not well, it is heartbreak, but not the kind you think. I'm very fond of saying that things can always be worse. Because they can. Just because they can. And so I have a very stoic / Zen sort of philosophy of non-attachment that I subscribe to. And, sometimes, that kind of makes me a Debbie Downer. That I just don't get woohoo excited about every little thing, or, I don't know. It's hard to really like describe what that whole thing is like, at least from my point of view. But so here I am, still heartbroken. Camp is still a mess, and I guess the good news is that I got to make at least one last good memory here before it all came crashing down. Now, I knew this moment was going to come eventually, but I've finally been contacted by somebody who just recently bought this plot of land, and now I have to leave. And it's kind of like, I really don't know if I should talk about summer at all, but, her death was something I've been preparing for so long, and yet completely fell apart, when it happened. And I knew I would, I knew that the preparation was meaningless. It wasn't going to do me any good. But it's the same in this situation. Like, I mean, I've thought about it so many times and had so many contingency plans, and yet it doesn't change, the fact that I don't want to leave. This is like a very, very sad moment for me. And I had so many other things I want to talk about in this week's video. It's just non-attachment. The Buddhists say that pain is inevitable, but suffering is mitigatable, I guess, or you don't have to suffer if you don't want to. I think I pretty much made that point in the last video. And nonetheless, as Zen-like as I kind of feel at the moment, there's a very fine line between detachment and non-attachment. And it's one that I've never quite gotten right. The Buddhist philosophy of non-attachment doesn't mean shut off your emotions and just become a heuristic automaton, going through life just kind of, with following this algorithm of the Eightfold Path or something. Like, it's not supposed to really be that. But like, it's really hard to be present in the moment and experience it, and everything that it is, and yet somehow I personally have to be emotionally detached in order to be non-attached. I can't be one or the other. Either I'm attached and emotional about it, or I'm detached and unemotional about it. But I know I'm missing, like, the Buddhist ideal here, but I'm not the awakened one. Never claimed to be. So yeah, this is rough. What did I want to talk about this time? Let's see what I have in my bag of tricks. So, redirection is always another good way to cope with life's slings and arrows. Take your pain and funnel it somewhere else. I'm not denying my pain. I'm accepting it. Trying not to be overwhelmed by it. And hopefully I was really hoping this wasn't what my tarot cards meant in my last reading. More on that later. But every time there's a certain card in a certain position, it means oh lordy. Oh wow. This would probably be the best thing to talk about is, I can't even delve deeply into this, but maybe I'll touch on it. Why I'm a determinist. I really am a determinist. So there's all kinds of determinism. I sort of fall into, I guess, the category of like just causal determinism, I think it's called, because it's sort of like, it was a popular idea, I think, around the time of the Industrial Revolution. We became obsessed with machines and factories and stuff, cause and effect, blah, blah, blah. The sort of mechanistic view of the universe, like when science became, science and not just natural philosophy. And so the idea is that if we live in a universe of cause and effect, and every action has a reaction, which has a reaction, which has a reaction, and so on and so forth, and then you take that and apply it to every manifest thing in the universe, all in this complicated interrelationship, like this just ever growing web of interrelationships, and interactions and things colliding and mixing, and then like more stuff happening. It's the idea is that if we were a good enough mathematician, we would be able to see this, like calculate it all. Like that's kind of what God is, and that's why I say that you don't have to be religious or subscribe to like a religion to be a determinist. But if you believe in the classical definition of God, as, or at least in the Western sense of the word, as a being who's omnipotent, omniscient, and omnibenevolent, even though I think those are like kind of, it's all just silliness. That's all, does not all mean the same thing really when you get down to it. But if you're omniscient, let's say, let's break it down to that, then you're all-knowing. So if God already knows that you're gay, or God already knows that you're trans, or God already knows that you're a bank robber, then how does that give you, how do you have free will? There's no way. And even if there's slippery little ways of trying to make a compatibilist view of determinism, but it's none of that really pans out, in my opinion, when you really get down to brass tacks. Either God's omniscient or not, and if you accept that that the universe is governed by an omniscient being, then you have to be determinist, because there's one being that knows everything, which means it's already written, at least in the mind of God. So I do make, or what I was going to point out in my more in-depth analysis of determinism and my own relationship to it, that it's very curious that as an atheist, or somebody who, like, at the heart of their being has always considered themselves to be an atheist. And no matter how hard I try to pretend to be an agnostic, like I really just don't know, which I don't. I'm skeptical in like absolutely everything, uh, like more than I should be. And in fact, in college, I hated skepticism. Like, I was very, very much. I don't know. I was at a crusade to prove that there was, a reason to live spiritual as opposed to a materialistic lifestyle. And in order to do that, you have to. There's some presuppositions you have to make, and if anything, in the last couple of years since I moved to the high desert, if I've learned anything, it's just I know nothing. I have to start all over. I have been starting all over, and like I said in my last video, it's really not important for me to understand anymore. I understanding is meaningless. It's not day-to-day life. It's not being present. It's not just considering that bowl of Cheerios that you're eating in the morning, in its suchness, and its thusness, and its isness, or whatever. Things are what they are, and I'm tired of thinking about it. I just try to let life unfold, which is also weird because part of what was so magical about me coming out as trans, and I might as well go ahead and sidetrack for just a second to say that the clinical side of my transition, which I've been going through now for over a year, for almost not quite 2 years, to me that's not transitioning. To me, transition is the whole process, but then I can extrapolate that be the whole process of life. Like some trans women or trans men, I suppose, they stop identifying as being a trans woman and start identifying as just being a woman, which I think is kind of a beautiful thought, but it's also a little bit disingenuous. How are you just gonna forget that you were born with a certain biological skill set? I am the receiver. I have the ovum. I am the donator. I have the sperm. It's biology. It's a bitch. And in any case, so yeah, I don't see myself ever trying to deny the fact that I'm trans, even if I somehow magically achieve some modicum of passing privilege in the future. It's just, Leslie Feinberg had this really beautiful quote, and it was what kind of got me over the passing thing back when I first came out. It was one of those stumbling blocks. Like, I'm never going to pass. I'm 6'3", like it's just not going to happen. And she has this beautiful line. I'm probably going to murder it, but it's like, I think she says, passing means having to live in fear in order to survive. Something like that. And I mean, it just really hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, you're right. We don't, passing isn't for us. Passing is for them, especially if you fall into the category of people who believe that gender is a social construction. If being a woman isn't about being a mother per se, or having your hair long, or wearing skirts, or putting on makeup, like, how do you define essential womanhood or essential manhood? That's why a lot of times when I write or speculate in any form, audio, visual, or whatever, I tend not to say femininity, or I use this like archaic like femine, especially in my turf war kind of pixlr things that I do. I love making new acronyms out of turf. I'll say talented experimenter redefining femininity, not femininity. But that's also me just kind of being a hipster too. Like I've got to do shit the way that nobody else does it because it just speaks to me more to be original, which isn't even original. I'm just falling back on something that most people don't know about because, like all hipsters, I eat my pizza before school, so it is what it is. Okay, so I was going somewhere with this, and I can't remember where. So transitioning, yeah, that's a transition. Fuck it. If I have to like go back and edit this shit, I'm actually getting a little bit better at it, having done this once before now. So I will just go hashtag no fucks given, and see if I can find my way back to whatever thread I was on before. If nothing else, forgetting where I was in my story or whatever it was, this dialogue, this monologue, I should say, which I very much want to be a dialogue, but I'll get to that later, hopefully, maybe, is definitely helping me forget the fact that, like, this is going to be one of the last times I'm going to be sleeping in this bed, in this tent, in this spot. And so, where were we? Passing privilege, all that stuff. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to keep going with that. I think it was very amusing that Natalie Wynn pointed out that in her debate against Blair White, or, I guess it wasn't against per se, it's a debate, right? And so it has to be against. But it was just a total, I don't know. She thinks that, she portrays the two sides of this argument very well. Like, did she win? Did she lose? The first time I saw the debate, actually, a friend of mine sent it to me, and I didn't watch YouTube back then. I didn't really pay any attention whatsoever to social media. And this was back when I just moved up to the high desert. It was right just around the time I was having my existential crisis, or just before, maybe just after. But in any case, of course, like when I watched it like 4 times in a row, like twice that night before, and I just fell asleep, and then I woke up in the morning and watched it 2 more times. And for those of you who haven't seen this debate, between Blair White and the genderqueer activist, or whatever the heck it was they called ContraPoints, it was so patently obvious, like, who was right in that debate to me. And I thought that I couldn't imagine that someone like Blair White existed. Like, how can a trans woman just be such like, I just rejected it, out of hand, really, without being more I don't know, circumspecious about it. And then about a year later, I would say, at which point I was on hormones, and I had just gotten kicked out of Paxton Palace. Not really kicked out, but my normal, it was the end of my living within the solid walls of a home and all that jazz. Which, I'm eternally thankful for not having to do that anymore, because now, my home has gotten way bigger. One of, this Fort Paradise's whole, like, the whole point was that I wanted to put the home in homeless. Like, I've been killing it, and thank God, like, I just published my website with some pictures of this place. So obviously I'm gonna have to, like, as soon as I get done with this video, I'm gonna run down to Paxton Palace, which is still sort of like, kind of my home base when things get rough, and spend all night long adding content to that webpage, so that I can show the owners and their property manager, or whatever they want to call it. Just all the stuff that I've been up to, um, and they'll see that I'm not just out here being shiftless squatter with no higher purpose, other than getting drunk and spreading tin cans all over the desert. But God, I've just digressed again, haven't I? I hope y'all can forgive me for being emotionally distraught, because this is just the way my brain works, and without a script, without whatchamacallit, like a machine, or what do you call it, a teleprompter, to kind of keep me on track. My brain just literally wanders all over the place. So yeah, I mean, I do feel like that's going to be problematic in the future, like if my YouTube channel, because at least with a podcast, I'll be able to have notes. You can't all see me just like looking down, trying to remember what the hell I'm supposed to be talking about. I can kind of set things up for myself and make it a little bit more polished. But then again, like there's a big part of me that doesn't really want this to be polished. I want to expose all my flaws, because I don't know. It's part of the honesty thing, the truth thing, that I mentioned in the last video, like, which I should clarify too. I learned the hard way that honesty is not the best policy. Full disclosure is not the best policy, and it's not because it's not a noble idea. It's that the world's not set up for people like that. I wish I could say that that somehow there was this magic hand that shielded me from all the evil in the world, because I was just so perfectly honest, and it was its own reward or something. But that's not how it turned out. I just ended up getting fucked over relentlessly, and I'm still getting fucked over relentlessly to this day. And this is not part of it. Okay, the owners of this property and their agent or whatever are completely willing to work with me. I mean, that's a huge blessing. As long as I can show progress, that I'm breaking the place down and packing it up and moving elsewhere. The guy even offered me a job as a caretaker of other properties, which is, I'm not gonna lie, like something that I sort of hoped would come out of this, except maybe like in one of the bed and breakfasts nearby, not like far flung, as this guy was talking about. Not, which I love. Like, the more far flung, the better. The farther away from people, the better. But I don't have a mode of transportation, so I can't do it, and that is really a bummer, because I mean, can you imagine if like this whole Fort Paradise experience was just leading up to me getting to? I mean, they will let me stay for free in properties just to take care of the place, and I don't know how to pull it off, but I'm hoping that if I talk to people that I know about this, maybe something will magically appear. But be that as it may, I might have to make this a two-parter. I don't know how much memory I have left on my phone, and I would actually like to coherently sort of go back, watch this, they go back and be like, okay, so let me put this in more of a linear form. But then again, do I really give a fuck? I mean, people see things as linear progression of time, but really it's just more like wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. Yeah. So, where was I? Oh gosh. Don't try this at home, kids. Technically, I've quit smoking, but I've been having rough run of it lately, and so fuck it. You know, almost everything that one our bad habits are usually the things that we like, and not the things that we really ever want to get rid of doing. Ironically, I was such an anti-smoker for so long that the fact that I ever started in the first place is retarded, and I still keep myself for it. But relapse happens, you know. I'm really hoping the sun holds out for just a bit longer. I might just ramble forever because right now it's the only thing keeping like the tears at bay, and I thank you ahead of time for your patience and everything with me, because um, this really helps me a lot cope with what's going on. And um, even though I don't feel like it would be right to, you know, name names or get too far into like, you know, all the sources of my sadness, there's no reason why I can't try and let some of that out anyway, and just let everybody know where I'm at on a personal level, and promise that someday this channel will get back around to being a bit more educational and business-like. Yeah, but where's the fun in that when we could just? You know, my life would make an amazing reality television show. I'm telling you. When I got abandoned in Bakersfield last year, and I was just wandering around town, uh, doing what I do and trying to, you know, get by. I was actually trying. I think that particular day I was digging through dumpsters around the downtown area, trying to find enough recyclables that I could buy makeup, because staying in the homeless shelter that was, you know, Christian faith-based organization for homeless men, you know, uh, it was a little. I'm not gonna say triggery, you know. I'm not a butthurt trans woman who, you know, feels like the entire world's against her or anything like that. And the people that ran that ran the shelter, you know, individually they all had their own sort of level of comfortability with me. Um, but the policies they even had policies in place for like what would happen if they ever had, you know, somebody who was trans stay there. I don't think they would have accepted like a trans man because they were biologically male. I think, you know, that was like against the rules. I think the only reason they accepted me was because I was biologically male, which is the irony of ironies. Um, and some of you know, they made me shower alone because they were trying to respect like my privacy, but all it did was like single me out to everybody, you know. And so it was a very, very, very strange experience. So anyhow, yeah, you know, they had shit for razors. You know, you wouldn't even know they were doing their job unless you were cutting yourself. So you know, I was trying to get together enough money to like feminize myself, because they didn't, you know, the guy that abandoned me didn't, you know, have the courtesy to throw my clothes out the window, you know, before he left. So I was stuck wearing all these oversized men clothes. I mean, it'd been so long since I'd had to wear crappy men's clothes, and you know, I was even, you know, I found 2 bottles of wine in my excursion trying to find recyclables, and when you know, my honesty thing, whatever it is, you know, pretty much demanded, like on my way back to the shelter, I just decided I had to go try to return the bottles of wine. It just wouldn't be right for me to keep them, because I used to work in the restaurant business, and I know how employees try to like sneak things out the back door, and why they hadn't gone and picked them up yet, I don't know. But you know, or maybe they hadn't. But long story short, you know, the guy behind the bar that I tried to talk to about having found these bottles of wine thought I was trying to, uh, you know, hustle him somehow. He didn't. All he saw was this homeless dude, you know, uh, just probably smelled gross from climbing in dumpsters. You know, and I didn't even make enough money to buy like decent razors or anything. But I did manage to get like some really, really cheap makeup at like a Dollar General, and that made me feel better. So yeah, that's, you know, definitely going in figured as high desert transgender blues. That more full story. But God, see, I've already forgotten why I was talking about that too. Um, I have the mind of a sieve, but I'm nothing if not a great conversationalist, because there's somebody on across the table from me that can either like keep me on track, or because we're having a conversation, it reminds me of what constantly reminds me of what we're talking about. Whereas without anybody across the table from me, um, it's hard to remember like why I'm even talking, which is exactly the point. It's because I'm sad and depressed and doing my best to not freak out over the fact that I have to leave. So yeah, I'm gonna quit reminding myself and you, the viewer, of that fact. Um, yeah, it's getting dark, and I really don't want to do anything. I didn't even like. I was planning on having like a camp, like a camp warming party on September 7th, which I think is like the weekend of Labor Day or something like that. Um, to just finally that was going to be my date. I was going to have everything done and have the place completely pimped out, and just be like, this is. I'm never going to have a chance to do that now. Or maybe I can if I just sort of like get most everything cleaned up. Um, I don't know. We'll see. And when I was talking to the agent, it turns out that this place is actually like a 40-acre parcel or something like. And the information that I had that I gotten off of a program called Landglide, and then another one, I forget what it was called, but they both said that this particular chunk of land was registered to some couple with a mailing address in Yucca Valley, but apparently that information's all crap. Or maybe it's just changed in the last month or something like that. But it's apparently owned by like a brokerage or that they just sold it to somebody. And so I don't know, maybe if I just ask nicely, they'll let me have like one last like blowout or something. See if I can get some people here for a little party. Good. Last supper. It's not ominous. So yeah, just when things can't get worse. Oh yeah, they can. Oh yeah, they can. And I'm glad that I'm at least. I feel like I've been courageous about it, in the sense that obviously this wasn't gonna be forever, but um, coming out here and sort of realizing that my life was actually better um, than it had been. That instead of a roof and four walls, I had the sky and the mountains, and therefore a much bigger home than where I was staying before. And it gets spooky to live out in the open desert uh, by yourself, especially when it's a new moon and you're just there listening to the noises and whatnot. But that only bothered me for a while, and then like a very short while, and then as I just sort of started nesting, you know, like a creature of the desert does, uh, I just realized I could do this. And I, some of the stories that I heard about people who maybe were like some kind of, great artist that got discovered and for a second like had, wealth and a certain fame or whatever, and just ended up going back to being homeless and dying a drunk or something. Like those stories make a lot more sense to me now, because um, like once you've stepped back from society and it's bullshit, and you start to see, like, you know, the chains that are just all over you, that seem just, you know, so natural that you don't even stop for 1 second to consider it. You know, I thought I would have done anything at the beginning of my transition, the clinical side, to not be homeless, to not be um, unemployed. You know, I didn't think that was a very good way to start my, you know, the narrative of Phaedra, the personal mythology. Um, you know, I was still so stuck in the mindset of uh, at least having to be a productive member of society, I suppose. And fuck that, you know, like, I don't ever see myself going back to putting on a uniform and having to punch a card and, you know, get paid not nearly a fraction of what I'm worth. And, you know, but honestly, I don't really think I'm worth anything per se, because the only, you know, everything that I've done out here has been worth it. Like, you know, like far more so than anything I'd done before. You know, really finally coming, if nothing else, you know, my takeaway from Fort Paradise, Fort Feifei, you know, whatever I've variously called it over the years, um, has been this: that you shouldn't measure wealth by how much you have. You should measure your wealth by how little you need. And I know that not everybody can do it. Not everybody's just at liberty right now to, you know, give it all up and buy a little pup tent, find a, you know, vacant spot of land in the desert, and you know, go set up shop. But, you know, I was fortunate enough to be able to have that opportunity, and uh, granted, it all just sort of happened, you know. And as a good determinist, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that, you know, it wasn't really ever going to happen any other way, right? Um, and so I guess that brings me to another point that I know I've been wanting to bring up in my videos, is gratitude. Um, One of the most important things that I've also learned in this time has been gratitude. You know, when my friend Kelsey gave me the cabin tent last winter, and um, you know, that was a huge step forward. It represented sort of like all, like, taking everything to the next level, as far as like the camp was concerned. And I put a lot of work into it, and ultimately it was work that all got destroyed by the wind. But I mean, there's this huge lesson to be learned here, and um, I would be an ingrate to, you know, just stay sad over it and not um, be grateful for the learning experience, at least. And speaking of gratitude, I'm grateful to my friend Guy, who gave me this oil lamp, which I'm not going to break, which I'm now going to utilize to shed some more light, because I don't feel like I'm done yet. I want to keep talking, if I can let it. The glasses are off, folks. There we go. But now that I don't feel so much like crying, I don't really need the glasses anymore. So, here we are. I probably am going to wrap things up here a little bit, because I'm getting hungry. And so, yeah. But hopefully, since they're not kicking me right out, I should be able to, I guess that's gonna have to, I really am gonna have to channel all this, heartbreak and pain and anguish into a lot of content because now the thumb screws are on. I don't have all day every day to do this shit, or like I do have all day every day to do this shit. I mean, I don't have forever to get around to it, and thank God I broke the seal with my last video and finally got myself to a place where I give no fucks. And even if I feel like no one in the right mind would be interested in any of this, I get to do it. So at least I get to look back on it someday and be like, ha ha ha, God, I was so stupid. Or, oh my God, I wish I was still that cool. Or, whatever. Um, but, it's crazy the way things work out. Um, I would launch all this social media stuff just right at this huge, humongous change in my life. Again, I pretty much devoted myself to that notion that life is fleeting and ever changing, and there are no absolute truths, and there is no solid ground to stand on. Yeah, I hesitate to say that I'm a nihilist per se, or to take it to the next step and say that life has no meaning except what you give it. I mean, I'm a bear of little brain. I'm like poo. I just don't. Um, Once again, I've only ever been a hack philosopher. I've never really been talented at exposing any kind of deep truths about anything. But at least I've been able, to some extent, to take the blinders off. I feel like, at least to some extent, I have a little bit more clarity, a little bit more, at least, not when it comes to personal things like relationships. Anything having to do with myself, I'm too close to the problem to really be able to see it. Um, but being able to step aside and practice gratitude has really been a game changer for me, because no matter how bad things get, or the fact that they can get worse, and keep getting worse, and will get worse, make no mistake, um, it's all a matter of perspective. Um, and the more bad situations, or you're in, or bad decisions you make, or whatever, if you really want to think of them as bad, you can at least still mitigate them, by turning them into a learning experience, um, or turning it into poetry, or turning it into a painting, or you know there's always a way to transform energy, be it emotional energy, or intellectual energy, or nervous energy, whatever, to harness whatever that is, and um, do something with it. Anything, like, it doesn't matter. And the reason why it doesn't matter, if it makes you feel better, or happier, or if you can make other people happier, whatever it is, do you. Uh, and I'm just doing me, and whatever that means, which at this point doesn't mean a heck of a lot. I haven't even gotten much art done because I've been too busy working on the camp, which is now destroyed, and getting involved, in a relationship that was doomed to fail, and or trying to win the trust of somebody whose trust can't be won, or none of it takes me all the way down. I'm even closer to rock bottom now than I was when I made the last video, and but I actually feel less close, now that I've gotten this all out of my system. So, I'm grateful for my Obama phone. And, if it wasn't for the COVID virus, I wouldn't be getting all this extra data with my free, phone plan that would allow me to upload all this stuff to YouTube and put it out there. And so, yeah, gratitude. If there's any gift that I would encourage anybody to give themselves in this world, that a lot of people have a higher power, that they've always been able to, like, oh, thank God, whatever. I didn't have that. I've never had that. I mean, I'm just grateful for what I have, like, as it is or seems in my life. I don't, attribute it to any higher power per se. Although I think one of the things that I got off track with, that I was trying to mention earlier, was when I say, like, destiny is my boss, kind of thing. Because I always have been such an atheist, when I say something like destiny is my boss, it's very curious, because what really in my determinism is different than being in a religion. I really can't say. I mean, I might as well just say God or goddess or whatever. I don't know why I cling so hard to making sure everybody understands that I'm an atheist, or I mean, I don't really feel like atheism describes me very well. And maybe it's just sort of like, something that I inherited from my father, because he was a second degree black belt in Kung Fu, and he sort of, I guess, paid lip service to Taoism as his preferred spiritual cognitive mode or whatever. And that's great, because Taoism is the bomb. And sometimes, I mean, if I had to try to describe sort of how I think of the universe, Taoism's heavily influenced that way of thinking, like a Taoist Zenist kind of combination, with a healthy dose of narcissism thrown in. I'm going to create my own spiritual philosophy, but nah, whatever. It is what it is. So I guess I'm probably not going to have anything more useful to say at this point. But I might hold to the two-parter thing, seeing as how I'm already pushing 50 minutes. And I would just hate to be, like, in the middle of my most perfect diatribe ever and have my memory run out on me. So until next time. One million morning when I'm straight, I'm gonna open up your gate. Just another beautiful morning after the rain. It shouldn't be too hard to. So, in the interest of recording about a certain part of the way done, I lost a lot of time today.